They don't appreciate it.
I know I'm looking at this whiskey in front of me.
So, I'm just out of curiosity.
Should we get rolling?
Is this an introduction or is this the...
Yeah, you know what? If he's looking at the whiskey before him, that means we need to start another
There's
episode.
some people that probably are like...
The other third guy,
And
dear
they have
listener.
no clue.
Dear listener, welcome to the Savor the Burn podcast. My name is Jonathan. Across the table from me is Mr. W2. And tonight we have the privilege of enjoying whiskey and a delicious brownie from the spectacular Katie with Chandler.
Hello. Second time caller. Long time listener. And for some of you that you're like, why did you call for the second time? And I'm like, because I'm here for the...
Because the first time no one answered.
Wasn't even sure I called the right number, so I kind of had to call back again.
Yeah, I requested a song and I got nothing. So I was really like trying to call back in just to make sure that I was being heard. But now I'm here for the brownies.
He's here for the brownies.
So
you give him one, he's hooked.
Again, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate the brownies. I will see you later.
Taking the time and definitely coming over and hanging out because we're gonna milk this for every minute of content that we can.
No, I want the brownie. I want the bourbon. I want the bourbon this time. I want the whiskey and the bourbon this time.
Wiki. And tonight on this episode of Savor the Burn, we're going to try one of W2's favorites. It's a Whistle Pig small batch rye aged 10 years.
So what's up next here is the Whistle Pig small batch 10-year rye whiskey. This was a bottle that was gifted to me, and it has become one of my favorite ryes.
And it's a beautiful bottle, too.
They put out some good stuff. I did not know this, but reading through a little bit of the description on the distillery, it is a farm in Vermont. 2007, a band of dedicated rye enthusiasts bought a farm in Vermont, lovingly named Whistle Pig Farm. Reading through this, that's kind of where it began, and this is their 10-year. So it's aged... a little bit longer than your standards, and it retails for an $84. So it's a little bit higher priced bottle than what we have done here recently. It's a straight rye whiskey, and it is at 100 proof, so it's 50% alcohol.
So it'll be a little hot. At least we know going into it. We're not going to be surprised by it. What do you get off the nose?
Before we even get to that, as I was pouring it, just to point out, I think I heard you comment on the color.
Yeah.
The tasting notes on this have the appearance listed as a burnished bronze, which I kind of agree with. It's definitely a lot darker in color than a lot of them. We have tried a lot of amber and
amber, like
pale
a dark
straw
honey, pale straw.
Light honey.
I don't think we've gotten into any white whiskeys yet, have we?
We have not.
But yeah, it's a rye whiskey, and everybody knows that if you've been listening to any length of time, I'm a fan of rye. Rye whiskeys and bourbons.
I get a lot of butterscotch on this one.
Butterscotch?
A lot of the whiskeys, a lot of the bourbons, even a lot of the ryes. Caramel is one of those things that you hear people talk about, and we've talked about over and over and over.
Yeah.
Caramel, vanilla, and all that. And this one, I get
different.
a lot of butterscotch on this one.
So like what you have down here is basically butterscotch and honey, spice, and a hint of mint. And for me, I get that butterscotch as well. I get the butterscotch and then the spice hits.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting the butterscotch to hit like my nose in a sense, because butterscotch is such a more mellow smell that
if you leave the back of your nose open and let the smell roll over your tongue, you can smell the butterscotch. I don't know if that's a normal thing to do, but
it's there. It's just you gotta kind of be patient a little bit, letting your nose seek that part of the. But I don't know if I would have noticed it if it wasn't also initially pointed out. I don't know if my nose would have jump straight to it.
And the notes say, a hint of mint.
Which I'm not picking up on the mint. It says spice, but I don't know if I'm picking up on spice or if that's just the heat from the...
I'm picking up just
from the alcohol.
Faintest hint of a mint. I'm picking up a little bit of it, but it is very, very subtle.
Well, I'm going to introduce this to my mouth.
Let's dive into this.
Wow, that's a bit hot.
Chandler's looking at me with a face. What you got?
I feel the heat.
It's got heat.
I feel it. I feel it all the way into like my heart's like pumping a little bit faster now.
Yeah, and went past the stomach into the heart.
Which ain't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like when when it's cold, like I'll give me a swig of this and I'll jumpstart all over again.
And I guess that's a finish.
But it talked about the spices as the taste.
Yeah.
And the spices.
Baking spice.
Is that on the mouth?
Yeah.
Flavor, taste palette.
Powerful baking spices and pralines with vanilla and more.
Praline, there's a texture to it after you chewed them up and swallowed them.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like whatever's kind of left on the tongue, inhibiting other flavors to pass through. It's just like it's pretty much holding your taste buds hostage.
Mm-hmm.
To me, pralines or pecans, whatever you want to call them, they do that for me sometimes. So that's something that I'm getting off this Whistle Pig. It had an oakiness to me. I don't see oakiness in the thing, but
nope.
There was an oakiness to it, which I expected there to be an oakiness to it anyway, because it's been aged 10 years in a barrel. But yeah, it was a bit hot. I think this would be a good candidate for the old melting half an ice cube in it and swirling it around and knocking some of that proof down so I can taste things a little bit better. This is a it's very tasty, and that was just first pull.
Mm-hmm.
So I can always come back and give it another taste and see what more I can pick up on it. But yeah, the spiciness, it's there because it's that rye. And I read here in your notes while you were talking earlier that they grow their own.
Yeah. Well, and I just read on here that one of the big differentiations between this and a lot of other ryes, which a lot of other ryes are at least 51% rye.
Uh-huh.
This is 100% rye.
Okay. Huh.
So my only feedback at the moment is that spice has stung the taste buds way more than I was like expecting or maybe a little bit hoping for.
Uh-huh.
So like my tongues feel like I got a little bit of like small daggers that are like
Yeah.
like shivving into it a little bit. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not what I was like expecting. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I think maybe it's just a thing that I wasn't prepared for.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to keep on taking some sips to just get a better understanding. But yeah, that spice on the second taste really hit.
Yeah, second taste, I can still feel or taste the oak. Not so much the butterscotch, but that was just from the nose. There's vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the notes, and I agree.
The notes talk about on the finish, bold and strong with toffee. So on the finish, your butterscotch kind of gives way to more of a toffee and wooden spice in the first line.
I don't know what wooden spice means, but I think I understand
Wooded spice.
Wooded. Yeah. I think I don't know what it means by definition or by example, but as I'm experiencing the finish firsthand,
mm-hmm.
it makes sense. It's like that translates because it's oakiness and it's rye.
I'm trying to think of like what are some spices that are more tree leaning than like leaves.
Clove. Those come in, the little spikes.
Uh-huh. Like anise
mm-hmm.
or anise, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Little star-shaped spice.
Yep.
Pod.
And being on here and tasting the like dead guy versus this one, it's just such a stark difference. Like
yeah.
It's just such a different thing where, as you said at the end of like that episode of like there is no way to compare that.
Mm-hmm.
Compare that to
and
this one.
It makes this kind of difficult to do sometimes because you want to, because like you got that benchmark and the benchmark is based off of the last one that you had. Mm-hmm. And so when you go on to your second or third or fourth sometimes taste, it's like, well, this one is better than that one, but that's not our intent. Like we don't mean to do it, but we are doing it. Like we are comparing it mentally to that experience of the previous tasting. When it comes back to rating it, our 1 to 10. We really do try to hold fast to our self-imposed rule of judging it to itself because it's unfair to compare.
I think it also is why up to this point we've gravitated towards kind of, when we sit down and start tasting a handful of them together, we kind of approach it as all the same style. Yeah. So we have a little bit more of that commonality between them that we can kind of contrast and compare between. This, a rye is vastly different than a straight whiskey. And next up is going to be a bourbon, which is going to be very, very different from a rye.
Yeah.
And still very different from just your straight whiskey. And so, yeah, tasting it and kind of commenting and reviewing it without the influence of what you've had previously and
very
whatnot
difficult.
Becomes a lot more difficult, but also allows you to kind of, what you thought you knew with the last tasting does not hold true now. So,
and we've learned that just in the first couple episodes, first recording sessions.
Yeah,
because like what you were alluding to, we'll have a bit of a theme going for a recording session, and a recording session is just a night, and then on that night we try 3 or 4 different whiskeys and split it up and make several episodes out of it. But yeah, we've learned that lesson also.
It's definitely making it more difficult to react to and find the things to pull from and comment about. But I also feel like there's a little bit more genuine honesty that kind of comes with that evaluation too, because you can't compare it. Yeah, you're not comparing it to what you just had because it is so different.
Right.
And that's why originally I was going to put these in, straight whiskey, bourbon, rye order or something like that as a progression kind of a thing. But I decided to flip-flop them a little bit so that there would be a larger contrast in the tastings.
I think one of the things that I'd be interested in knowing, just based on the write-up that you gave, is that, the master distillers from Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
And so I'd be interested to know what Maker's Mark would taste like, or and if there are any similarities to this, even though that it's a rye. Because I just wonder what the distiller brings to the table in the sense of that process and how that impacts the taste.
Sure. There has to be something that a distiller is going to bring his own passions and his own preferences and
his own style,
his own style to it.
And granted, probably now you don't get a 1-to-1, right? Because he's not there anymore.
Right.
But you might be able to get closer because Maker's Mark has a distinct taste.
They've got a specific formula, and they stick to it, and they have for a very long time. And maybe he always thought, I wonder what we could, if we did this, but if we used rye instead.
Yeah.
Because for me, Maker's Mark has a bit of a sour element to it. And, it does remind me a little bit of Maker's Mark, but it's, and maybe this is just suggestive thinking or whatever, thoughts going on here. But when I read that Master Distiller Dave Pickerel, formerly of Maker's Mark, I thought, well, shit, that's what this kind of reminds me of, is Maker's Mark, only it's not. Is Maker's Mark a sour mash?
I think it is.
All right. So if it is, then, because when I think of Maker's Mark, I think it's a sour mash whiskey. Who is it? I think Jack Daniels is, and maybe Jim Beam is also. But instead of the sour mash, we got rye, and that was my initial impression when I tasted it in the mouth. I didn't quite know what to expect on the nose, and I wasn't really expecting the finish. But the finish with wooded spice, I mean, it's I don't know if that means oak and rye, but that's the way my taste buds are interpreting that. Interpretificating. Oh, wow.
So Google says that Maker's Mark is a mash bill of 70% corn, 16% wheat, and 14% malted barley.
Well, however that translates to the palate,
Maker's Mark uses a sour mash process. There you go.
Okay. And I think I should probably write this down.
Give them that paper sound.
To look up, damn it, to define sour mash. Actually, I've got another pen. Old trusty pen. So I take my notes and I write them down on my agenda. Define sour mash / process and figure out what that is. I still have to do my homework on the cold filtering thing, and I have done a little bit. I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around the process, but they bring it down to freezing temperatures to like I have the what, but I don't have the why memorized. Like I know it has to do with filtering out certain things so they can make the contents of the barrel stretch further and get more product out of it, and in the end get more money out of it. But whiskey snobs will say it affects the taste, and I'm sure it does. It has to. It also like you won't have like something this proof at a 100 proof. You're not gonna find. It has to be like a certain. I forgot what the ABV percentage is, but like after a certain percentage, you won't have to worry about that. But again, when it dips down to a certain percentage and below, it's very possible that you'll have certain things in there that can be filtered out with the cold filter. They get it down to freezing temperatures, and it freezes solid whatever it is that they're trying to get out of it. And then that gets caught in their metal mesh or their cloth filtration or whatever it is. And then that's taken out, and then what you're left with is a cleaner product that doesn't cloud up so much when you add water to it. And that's how they stretch out their product and get more money out of it. But does anybody have a 1 to 10 rating on this one, Mr. W2? How do you feel about it? This is one of your favorites, so I'm expecting a 5 or above, at least a 5.5.
This is one of my favorite ryes. I have grown quite fond of this.
And you started off not liking ryes at all.
I think years and years and years ago, my first explorations into whiskeys was stumbling into a rye, not knowing what a rye, bourbon, or straight whiskey was. And it was just, and I don't remember what it would have been, but I just remember it being just so hot that it was not for me. And then years later, as I've kind of been figuring this all out, I found myself back to ryes. This, another one of my favorite ryes is the Jefferson Reserve cognac finish,
which I was going to say is probably the first rye whiskey that I've ever had.
Yeah, that's a wonderful rye. It has a sweet finish to it, so it brings something completely different to the table. It still has a lot of that same hotness to it, that same rye spice to it, but then it's rounded out by a nice sweet finish of the cognac,
which you might also
we'll bring that down at some point too.
Yeah, I'm thinking another way to sweeten the finish on that would be the sherry casks, because it seems like anytime we've had anything that's been aged or finished or whatever in the aging process in a sherry cask, it's usually had a sweet finish on it, or a sweeter finish.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8.
An 8. Has anything ever had an 8 yet?
From me?
Yeah, from you.
From the W2...
The W2 rating.
PEI, the W2 power index right there.
Uh-huh. I don't know if anything's had it. Oh, Redbreast.
Oh, Redbreast.
That might have been like
Redbreast
8.5.
was an 8.5.
8.5, yeah. Okay, wow, okay. So this is your standard for ryes.
This is a good standard for me for rye, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if like someone's looking for a solid gift to hook dubs up with,
yeah,
it
would be Redbreast Irish whiskey, or it would be Whistle Pig rye, small batch rye.
10 years, please.
Or Woodford Reserve. You're a big fan of that too.
I love me some.
Yeah, but Katie's got that market cornered because of his 5-year anniversary. Is there's a theme for your anniversaries, and the benchmark at 5 years is wood.
My wife gave me wood.
Por supuesto. Of course she did. Of course she did. Well, for me, Unless you want to go, do you have an assessment, Chandler, or do you still need to process?
You go first. You go first.
All right. I think for this one, it's definitely hot, but I expected it to be hot because it's 100 proof. Like, how is it not going to be? But I think Whistle Pig Rye. I don't know. I'd probably put it at a 7.
Okay.
I think because it's got a great character to it. It brings a lot to the table. Even though like you're not gonna get burned, but you're gonna feel that burn. You're gonna savor that burn all the way down. I think actually I've got a little bit of water here. Let me add a couple drops, tops.
You've got a whiskey that is 100 proof.
Yeah.
That right there is already recipe for some heat.
Yeah.
And it's a rye whiskey. Mm-hmm. The rye spice by itself brings a spiciness that adds fuel to that fire.
Right. And I did make a note here, like the fire and the heat that we talk about, does that equal spice, or the other way around? I wrote it down wrong. Does the spice equal the fire or the heat that we talk about? I don't think it does, because the spice you feel in the mouth. Mm-hmm. The heat, the heat you feel on the way down. Yeah, sure. Initially, you do get the heat on the mouth, but it's pretty much, it evaporates. It's pretty well gone. The heat that you find, traveling its way down through your gullet, I don't know if that's spice so much, because we don't have taste buds down there in our esophagus, but we do have some kind of flame receptors going on down there. So I think my initial assessment, my first impression was this is very hot as far as like the proof and the alcohol content or whatever. But I had to keep reminding myself that this is a rye whiskey. So what I'm getting here is more heat from the spice of the rye than the heat from the proof.
Yeah, and I brought that up because I was just thinking about recently one of the bourbons we tried from Sweeten's Cove, the Tennessee. That was 110 proof bourbon, and with that one, I remember that one being a little on the hot side. Yeah. But it also had a lot of sweet flavors that were in there too, that I think dulls down some of that heat or whatever. I don't remember that one having a very long, hot finish on there. So, again, in my head, trying to compare but not compare.
Right, right. And I diluted mine, dear listener, with a slight amount of water in my my whiskey glass from my Glencairn whiskey glass. And after doing so, actually, dear listener, I would not suggest it. Instead of bringing the heat down and widening the ability to really dissect the flavor profiles in this, it augmented it to where the finish on this was not toffee and wooded spice like it initially was. Unfortunately, it changed it to what was it, like vanilla and licorice. So I would not dilute this with half an ice cube. I would just, unless it was part of the process of making a cocktail. So I believe this would work great in an old fashioned or a whiskey sour possibly. As far as drinkability goes, sippability, hanging out, long day at work, relaxing, enjoying yourself, watching the evening news, fed up with politics, so you change it to local news. Watching the weatherman lie.
Watching wrestling.
Maybe watch a little wrestling. That's right. That's right.
You're opening the doors for me to talk about wrestling. So.
Are you a wrestling fan?
So like not huge, but I mean I grew up on it. I still like kind of monitor it. Okay. So I mean I know like WrestleMania, like as we're recording this, WrestleMania is happening this weekend. Okay. I don't lose my mind, but I feel like.
So the
average guy, like growing up, hit a point in their life where wrestling was like a thing that people talked about. For me, I grew up in the era of like Stone Cold, The Rock.
Okay.
D-Generation X, like all of that. That was me. And so, I had do I want to run around giving people stunners? Absolutely.
They deserve it. They don't use the fucking turn signal. That's what's going to happen.
There's nothing like watching Stone Cold give stunners to people.
Nothing. Nothing. I'll stand up in the living room, fist in the air. Yes. You know,
there's a clip of like back when this WWF of like him giving like 21 stunners, like, and I think it was like the merger or something like that. Yeah. And it's just like watching
like when NWO came to town and he was like, I'm not having this.
Yes. And it's just like, and watching somebody kick someone in the gut and then like break their nose with their shoulder is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy the rock bottom, it's fine, whatever, all that type of stuff. But like if you said what is one finishing move or whatever that you would want to do on a regular basis, like that was that. And then I have a weird thing about, I don't know what it is, but I think it's because of like the commitment. Goldust is somebody that fascinates me because maybe it's because I just think it's so funny of the Shattered Dreams production, and that his Shattered Dreams is kicking someone in the balls, which I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And for some strange reason, I'm like, that guy committed. Like, props to him for committing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I would be at that level of commitment of dressing like that, performing like that, or anything like you know, feather boa, tight leather suit. I mean, I went to South.
Looks good on Liv Morgan.
Yeah, but it's just not a thing that I do. But right, you know, nowadays we got the second coming of the Rhodes, or the maybe third coming of the Rhodes, American Nightmare. Listen, I just want you to know that I'm a well-versed, I'm a worldly man.
Okay.
And I'm aware of things that are happening. We got the Usos, the Usos.
The Usos, yeah.
We know about that.
I'm not a fan of them.
I think that's
I think there's coattails to be ridden, and they're riding them hard.
I think that's probably fair. I think that's fair. But
like now, Roman Reigns being the heel of all heels, it doesn't seem fitting to him. I don't know what happened in his life. Made him turn.
He talked to Paul Heyman.
It's that damn manager of his.
He talked to Paul Heyman.
Or was it the other way around? Did Paul Heyman talk to him? Got in his head.
Anyway, listen, again, I'm a worldly man. I'm aware of what's going on in the world. So I have a finger on the pulse of WWE just in case.
I'd like to see Stone Cold Steve Austin come back and give Gunther a stunner. Gunther.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Or the Undertaker show up and take care of something. That was a good retirement fight. For me, it's not the same anymore. I will say this:
old AJ didn't see any of that coming.
It's not the same. The wrestling is not the same as back in my day when I was, a young kid.
AJ had him in a coffin, lowered him into the ground. He's standing over it, smiling. Job well done. What is this behind him? Who's in the driver's seat? The Undertaker. He knocked him into the grave that he built for the Undertaker. Buried him. Nothing but his hands sticking out. That's after he whipped everybody's ass.
That's another thing where I say like it's not like the same. Where it's like some of the hijinks that of the Attitude Era had of watching Stone Cold in a Zamboni, watching him in a monster truck, watching him in in a beer truck. Like, there is something to be said about that man in vehicles. But even, like, watching Kurt Angle come out with a milk truck, you don't get the same the same thing nowadays as you did back in the day.
No.
And for anyone that's not a wrestling fan...
It's a different kind of fanfare.
For anyone that's not a wrestling fan is probably sitting here and saying, like, that's the thing that, like, you're, like...
Yeah, they're like, these fucking dorks.
You're attracted to, but I'm like, cement truck... Stone Cold in a cement truck, filling up, Vince McMahon's nice Corvette.
Whatever happened to Vince McMahon, he had it coming.
Yes. But anyway, those are my thoughts on wrestling, and my thoughts on the Whistle Pig.
Yeah,
is that I will say that like I struggle with. I think from experience, that's like, I think that's what I lean towards when it comes to my critique is always like, what will this experience be? So like, I think my first question was going to be so
it's not based on what your experience has been that evaluates it It's what will my experience be?
Or like continue to be. Like I was like, I had this and it's like, that's great. And then like, okay, what would I do with this? Mm-hmm. And I think like what I was going to critique it on, like, or like to get a good idea of like how I see things is like, I love to cook. Like I love to cook. There's something to be said about like having a steak, and there's something to be said about having like a steak meal. So with the green beans and the mashed potatoes or whatever that you're adding to it. So like, I want to think about like, well, what does this steak bring to the table? But at the same time, what does the rest of the meal, potential meal bring to the table? Yeah. So I guess you mentioned a couple of cocktails, and you say those cocktails again that you think
a whiskey sour or just the old fashioned.
Okay, and what do you think, like as a cocktail for
this?
Yes,
for this, the Whiskey Pig rye.
I was thinking for this it would be a Boulevardier.
Okay,
Boulevardier. Okay, that's something I haven't had.
Boulevardier, I actually was doing a little bit of research today. It's actually one that my sister introduced me to. Boulevardier is the exact same recipe as a Negroni, which is a gin cocktail. It's just substitute rye whiskey for the gin. So it's got Campari, it's got sweet vermouth, and then your rye. I think you can also make it with bourbon also, but rye is the typical way to make it. And as I was kind of doing a little bit of research today and reading up on it, I learned that the first time the cocktail Boulevardier was penned as a cocktail is 1927. So it's a cocktail that's been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
But it's also
damn near 100 years.
Yeah. But it's one that gets forgotten about because it's not one of your common staples.
Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of what I was thinking of.
Kind of a weird name. Kind of weird to... I'd like a Boulevardier, please.
So I'll say this, like based on the drinks that you have suggested, for me, like I probably would give it a 7.5 or like an 8, somewhere around there. Probably like closer to the 7.5. Just because, like, again, a rye is going to have a distinct taste. And that's something that, like, if you are not about it, then you are not about it. Like, it's not going to, there's nothing that's going to, like, fully change your mind. And I will say that I struggle with something that is so hot that, I'm like, okay, I just wanted this to be smooth.
Yeah.
Granted, it's a rye. I have to, like, I have to acknowledge that and understand that.
And it's 100 proof.
It's 100 proof. Yeah. That's also true. So, like, then I have to, like, think about what you mentioned about the process and the respect of giving that this is getting closer to the purest version of, like, trying to get to the perfect version of this drink that you, that you could possibly get to. And so that's why I give it the 7.5, because then I'm, like, thinking other experiences. For me, I don't know if I would be drinking this on a regular basis. This would be a little bit more few and far between. It would not be something that I would, go out of my way. I'd be interested to know what a whiskey sour tastes like. I'd be interested to know what the drink that you mentioned, Wayne, say that again.
Boulevardier
would taste like. And so, like, I think that might change my perspective. But, like, again, if I had it by itself as a steak, it'd just be like, okay, like, this is, this is good. This is great. This is a lot. I don't know if I'm going to, like, go back to the waiter and be like, give me a second one of these.
Yeah.
Maybe with the rest of the meal, this might change the whole entire perspective that I have about it.
Yeah. While you were talking, I started to think, I've mentioned an old fashioned. The only old fashions I've had, I believe, besides the West Bottoms whiskey old fashioned.
And wow.
Right. Like, you want to talk about a new standard. That sumbitch. Chandler was there. Did you have one of those? The old fashions?
Which one is that again?
From the West Bottom Whiskey Company.
I think that I did.
Like, you had a couple of drinks.
I think that you gifted me one of those.
Right. That's what I was talking about. Like, if you were within speaking vicinity of me, let
try
alone
this,
shouting like, hey, they need one. Yeah, I walked out of there with a hell of a tab, but it was worth it. It's like you said, that experience of having your drink with other people, like-minded people, and having a good time. That's 100% worth it, 150% worth it. But this so when I think old fashioned, it's done with an old fashioned sour mash whiskey, and so this one doesn't have that. So instead of that wouldn't be my go-to, I don't think, for this. It might work great. It might work just fine. Sure. It's actually one of the first couple things that came to mind when I tasted it. Neat. That this might actually work great in an old fashioned or a whiskey sour. But if I had options, I would go with something different than a whiskey sour, because it's not, or than an old fashioned, because it doesn't come with sour readily available on the palate.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
If we're going to start with if we're going to turn this into a Boulevardier later, that's probably a good call, if not the best call, for this Whistle Pig Rye. So you said 1 to 10, you would give it an 8?
I give it a 7.5. I'm leaning closer to the 7.5 than I do to the 8.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just call it 7.5. I gave it a 7.
7? You gave it 7.
And W2 gave it an 8. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of in the same kind of ballpark.
But I also think that it's really leaning towards a preference.
Because, it is. Sure.
Because
absolutely.
I think that Dubs is talking about, like, I really like the Ryes. I've grown to like the Ryes. And it's like, right. If you really like Ryes, then this is probably going to be up your alley.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like, it's like if you are, for me, like, still just dabbling in this, vicinity of Ryes, it is something that I'm like, I respect and understand the heritage that it takes to create a great rye whiskey.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is still, again, I gave the description of that I felt like my tongue was being shivved a little bit. And I'm like, right. I still gotta take care of my tongue. I still gotta figure out, like, what do I really love about it or don't love about it. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that there are some drinks that you could create that would bring it a little bit back.
And I appreciate you taking the time to try to figure out, take your initial thoughts and your follow-up thoughts and dissect them and really kind of, like I said, take the time to figure out exactly what those thoughts mean and articulate them into your rating. And it's really interesting to hear what a third party thinks and how they think and how they evaluate things. So this has been a very good experience.
I'd be interested to know, like, how do they rate the other guests that you've had? Because, like I said, I'm rating based on experiences,
right? Which
I think is probably how
and preference
and like how I go about like 90% of my life is like a critique of like the experience that I had wasn't that great. I will give it a 9 out of 10 or like, I guess not that great. Then I'd give it like a 4 out of 10. But if it's great, it's like, it's closer to that 9 out of 10 or, it's rare. I don't want to list out the things that give.
Anybody's ever rated anything under a 5.
Not at this point.
So I'm interested to hear, like, in the future, if we ever do find ourselves in the realm of
maybe
a 5.
That was that Town Branch.
Oh, one of the first few episodes, we tried something that was like,
and
it was startlingly.
We just scratched our head for the longest time trying to figure out.
So let me ask you, what is your core kind of like paradigm when it comes to like trying to rate the whiskey that you're tasting?
I'm not sure I can think and evaluate my definitions on core and paradigm as far as rating goes. Because limited intellect over here on this microphone. But it's like when
I think that you're fooling us, but that's okay. Like listen, like I sell low to make us feel like we're matching up with you.
My main challenge, I can say, and if there's another way you can articulate that to get the answer that you're looking for, feel free to interject. But my main challenge is sticking to the whiskey or the bourbon or the scotch that we are currently evaluating and tasting and getting to know and being introduced to, and not comparing it to something else. Like, I've wrestled with this one. You've heard me mention Maker's Mark several times, just because it reminds me so much of the OG Maker's Mark, only it's not sour, it's rye. It's like that element, the sour element, has gone out the door, and rye has been put in its place. It seems like everything else, and I might have to do a side-by-side on these guys, between Whistle Pig and Maker's Mark, because I could be totally wrong on this, but I'm just kind of going on memory as far as Maker's Mark goes. But it seems like they're fairly identical, except for one has rye and one has that sour mash kind of element. But yeah, my main challenge is not comparing it to other things that we've done this night or previous night, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Does that ballpark the...
I think so. I think that, like,
the essence of your question?
I think that you're trying to be the most pure that you possibly can.
I have
like,
to be fair.
or at least in the moment of, like, this is what I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, Wayne, Dubs, do you have what is, like, kind of the cornerstones of, like, what you're judging based on, or is there not, or is it just based on circumstances? Because, I mean, I've already pulled the curtain behind what I'm doing. It's like, this is...
I think that there probably is, but I also think that there's also, for me personally, there's a large percentage of being in the moment and what I'm pulling from at that current time, beyond the second tongue and that we've talked about, which brings a whole different experience
really
with
does.
it. I really try to just focus on now and this moment and what I'm kind of feeling and pulling off of that. And then, like I said, kind of relating it to that drinkability piece of it and thinking about, how would this pair in a cocktail? How would this go with other things? The taste and the nose, and taking all that into account. But for me, it's more so just how I'm feeling in that moment.
I think that, I feel like we're covering all the bases, and that's like I think that's really, really cool in the sense of, like, trying to figure out, again, a person that's listening to this, what is, maybe I should take a gamble on this whiskey versus this whiskey or something like that, because I think that's the hardest. I think that's a hard thing as a listener, trying to figure out what is this bringing to the table. But having three people say it's doing this is, we're between 7 and 8. So if you got a good barometer within yourself, you can get a good idea if this is the whiskey for you or this is not the whiskey for you.
And the listener may agree with us. Listener may completely disagree with us. And but what the listener has going for them when they listen to us, they're getting 3 completely different perspectives. But hopefully they also hear and understand and respect the fact that we are trying to be honest with our evaluations and very specific, like to this point in time with W2, with me, not comparing it to anything that we've had previously, but to itself, with our guest Chandler here with his past experience and his preferences. Everybody's got preferences, and like you, Chandler, you're not a big fan of the super sweets, but I am. And Wayne is somewhere in the middle ground. Like, he loves them, but he doesn't necessarily have to have them.
I don't know about that.
Okay. Well, then you're a little more like me than I thought. But in my final assessment, this Whistle Pig small batch rye, aged 10 years, it's got the oakiness that you would expect from a bourbon. Instead of a caramel flavor that you would expect from a bourbon, you've kind of got some butterscotch flavoring in there. You've got a complexity that you would expect from anything aged 10 years. You've got a spiciness of the rye You've got the burn that you would expect from a 100 proof whiskey. You've also got a carte blanche, like a blank page as far as what you could do with it when it comes to cocktails, or using it as an ingredient, whether that be as an ingredient for a basic run of the mill cocktail such as an old fashioned or a whiskey sour, or something a little even more old fashioned like Boulevardier, or that I'm going to try. I haven't tried that before, but I think we're going to try that later. But something more designed specific to make the whiskey shine, or something to make the cocktail shine. So, and be the best that it can be. In the cocktail glass. But whatever. I had to throw something in there that rhymed or my head was going to explode. But this at $84, it's worth that money if you are a fan of rye. And I'm definitely a fan of rye. Like W2 mentioned, this is 100% rye, right?
Yeah. Which makes it a little bit unique.
Yeah. So
most others
they're not using
no corn.
Right. No corn, no barley, no dried fruits, no. It's got no razzle dazzle. Yeah. But it's very very honest with what it's got, and for that I respect it, and I would recommend it to anybody. Like if you like bullet rye, but you don't like how it's got a little bit of a sour on the finish, you would probably like Whistle Pig small batch rye, because it's got a unique wooded spice kind of finish on the end of it that, like, without knowing the Webster's version of definition of what wooded spice would be according to Whistle Pig, I mean, my taste buds define it as something that's oaky and rye in the finish, and I like it. I mean, it wouldn't have gotten a 7 out of 10 from me if I didn't like it. Dear listener, please evaluate our thoughts as you think about trying out Whistle Pig. And if you wholeheartedly disagree with what we say, please reach out to us. Let us know.
Here's the thing. This is the question that I have, because like I'm doing the research. I'm just trying to prep like you all. You two are ready, and feel like a rookie just trying to keep up with, like, being able to have the conversation, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
And so here's my trivia question for you all.
Okay.
So the creation of it is from an American-born writer who founded a monthly magazine. Mm-hmm. You already know the answer to this, do you? Called the Boulevardier. Mm-hmm. In what place, what city did this magazine
I'm blanking on
held from?
I do not know the answer to this.
I'll just say right here in Kansas City.
Right here in Kansas City?
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be pretty great. Boulevard.
It would be, because we've got Boulevard all over the place. Boulevard.
And I'm gonna stick with San Francisco because I do recall it being. I think I remember, and if my memory serves me correctly, 1914.
Okay, so you're close. You're about 10 years off 1927 to 1932.
Okay.
But the reason why I brought this up is because of the pronunciation, which you first brought up. Mm-hmm. And what did you say about
Boulevardier?
Yeah, it could also be what?
Boulevardier.
Which is
French.
French-ish.
Okay. Take a guess of the city now.
Oh, New Orleans.
No, Paris.
No.
Paris.
Oh, Paris.
Yeah,
okay.
I was going to say, I don't know a lot of French cities, but I mean, Paris is the only one I would know.
So I'm interested to know what the writer was doing in Paris, and then and more about the inspiration for calling it. But now, since I don't know French, I don't know how to pronounce it. With the
right,
because we talked about Italian,
right?
Which again, we're probably ticking off a lot of people being like, well, that phrase is not Italian, so stop treading on our,
Yeah, and if you say it like Russian or German, it sounds like a hate crime.
Yep.
So you just want to try to stick to the peaceful peoples.
Boulevardier.
Boulevardier.
And I also don't want to be like a stereotype of like a French person. So I don't know, like, do I like Boulevardier? Do I?
Boulevardier.
Well, look at you.
You guys make it sound like we have to drink this with our pinkies out.
Oh, I planned on it. I mean, look at these glasses you put them in. Where'd you find these?
I mix these up into coupe-style glasses.
Coupe-style glasses.
Yeah.
Which is like a shallow wine glass.
It is. It doesn't have the chiseled, angled sides as a martini glass.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shallow wine glass, shallow.
A shorter stem.
This cocktail was introduced to me from my sister.
Okay.
My sister she loves whiskeys, she loves bourbons, but she will not hesitate to tell you she is a gin girl. She loves gin, and one of her favorite cocktails is a Negroni.
All right.
This is the whiskey version of a Negroni.
Okay.
So it's the exact same.
Okay, so gin is for Negroni. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Exact same ingredients, exact same measurements. Just substitute your gin for your bourbon or rye whiskey. And in our case, we're doing the Whistle Pig Rye.
Which a Negroni is an Italian-based cocktail, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Kind of coming from the origins of it.
And so it'll still have Campari and vermouth, sweet vermouth. And dear listener, if you're wondering what sweet vermouth and Campari are, I had to look it up because I wasn't entirely sure myself. Sweet vermouth is also known as a red vermouth or Italian vermouth, thanks to its color and origin. It has a significantly sweeter profile than dry vermouth and can include up to 15% sugar. While it's sweet, it's not as intense as sweet liqueurs like amaretto. And when it comes to Campari, is an Italian alcoholic liqueur considered I don't know how to pronounce this. What's the accent mark over the E? Aperitif. I don't know. Obtained from the infusion of herbs and fruit and alcohol and water. It's a type of bitters characterized by its dark red color.
I did not realize that Campari was considered a bitters. It makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. And actually, if you were to taste it by itself, that absolutely makes sense because there's a lot of flavor in Campari just by itself. But I'm dying to give this a
You put a lot of work into this one, and it's just 1.5 ounces of rye whiskey. We chose Whistle Pig 10-year, 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, 1 ounce of Campari, stirred in ice. You put it all in the
just a pint glass.
Pint glass in ice, and you
stirred it. Not to anger the spirits.
Yes, right. I'm not sure how much you're going to anger these spirits. Strained into a chilled glass, which we put the crushed ice into the coupe glasses, and then dump that out, and then just serve straight up without ice. After you strained it out, you garnish it with an orange twist and a barrel-aged cherry.
I've really had good results with, before I start making and mixing anything, I'll put crushed ice in the glass and then let that glass sit there while I'm mixing and making the cocktail, because I'm building it in a separate glass with a few ice cubes in there, so I can then stir it, and then I strain, pour it in there. But while I'm doing all that, the glass itself is actually getting chilled.
I'll do something similar with my whiskey glasses. I'll throw them in the freezer. Like if I have a particular whiskey or bourbon or scotch or whatever that I don't want to water down, but I do want it slightly chilled, I'll chill the glass in the freezer for a little while, and then do my 2-finger pour. Right now, I think it's time we do a little cheers and we taste it. Try this out. There's a depth that I'm going to start with the finish on this cocktail. There's a depth that you find in wine that is present on this. I could taste the bitter that you were talking about from the Campari, and it's got thanks to Whistle Pig having the what'd you call it, 100.
Well, this one's just a straight 100.
Straight 100 proof. It's got some heat. You can kind of pull some of the ethanol off of that, but it still has everything that Whistle Pig had to offer in this glass. It's got the rye, It's got a little bit of sweetness. It's got a full depth and complexity that I'm finding. Even through the finish on this thing, it's got rye on the tongue. It's got a dry kind of rye on the tongue.
There's a lot of rye that comes out on this.
Yeah,
I feel like
it showcases it.
I feel I was going to say the with the Campari and the sweet vermouth, I feel like it really brings to light the rye of this whiskey.
It pulls from the botanicals that's in the Campari. Mm-hmm. I think it's different. This is my first Boulevardier, and I like it. I like it enough to where I might run out and buy the T-shirt. We'll see. Mr. Chandler, Mr. Johnson, how do you feel about it?
It's one of those drinks that like you start dividing them up into like taste categories.
Yeah.
And for me, this is where, like, let's say like the other drink that we had so far with the whiskey sour.
Yeah.
You're like on the complete opposite end. Like I don't feel like, and what I mean by that is not just the sour or anything like that, but there's like we talked about kind of the heat, or a little bit of the harshness of like the rye that's coming through.
Was gone, especially with the
it's gone.
And the whiskey sour, it was gone. Yeah, because of the egg white and the other things added to it.
I think that even if you would have used like Whistling Pig, it would have knolled it in a way,
or just Whistle Pig.
Or Whistle Pig, sorry.
Right.
Did I say Whistling Pig? Sorry about that.
Well, it's fine. Wayne said Tin Talk earlier, and I guarantee you, at some point, I'm going to say
Tin Talk, didn't I?
I'm going to say Sam Stung at some point. So don't worry about it. We're all a little mush mouth sometimes.
So with the Whistle Pig, like that, you're going to feel a little bit more like it. I think that you're going to still have that egg white that kind of knolls the taste in a completely different direction. With this. Like
with
heat,
this Boulevardier,
with the heat, you've knolled it, but like you've talked about accentuating kind of that rye a little bit more.
Yeah,
it makes me lean more towards, and I don't know what to like. I might need some help kind of describing it. So this, unfortunately, starts reminding me of like the cough syrup zone.
Okay.
Like I get closer to that zone, and like it's not my favorite, but I get the drink. Like I get that there's this kind of area of these types of drinks where you're like putting it all together, and it might lean towards kind of feeling like that. And I don't know what to think about that, because there's some drinks that I'm like, I do like the sour, I like the sweet, and then there's drinks like this that I like, but I also am like, this is like a one and done drink that like I'm not going to come back to it on a regular basis, and I don't know, like I might have it for the start of the night, get it kind of a little bit out of my system to a certain extent, like experience, and then like move on to something else that like has a sweeter taste, and maybe that's just a preference. So I'm just wondering, do you feel that way?
Well, could be a preference thing,
or is just maybe like I have like historical knowledge that makes me feel like, or maybe my parents have been giving me instead of cough syrup,
they've been giving you Boulevardiers.
Yeah.
How do you feel generally about rye whiskeys?
So when we talked about this, I struggle with it a little bit. So I have the Jefferson rye whiskey, and it's fine, but I think again the heat really kind of turns me off in the sense of like making it a drink that I go, or a bottle that I go to like immediately. So that's where I probably, again, it's a preference thing. That's keeping me from it. But I do feel like, and I guess I'm just saying that like if we're gonna maybe do a little bit of a comparison to another cocktail, like with like a whiskey sour, like this is in a different quadrant category,
right? Yeah, the whiskey
in the
sour,
sense of that feeling.
It has the sour. It's not like if you like sour, then you'll probably love a whiskey sour. If you're not a fan of sour, like you had said off mic, that if you're not a fan of sour, don't be discouraged from trying a whiskey sour. It's not like you're eating Warheads or Sour Patch Kids.
And more specifically, don't be discouraged by drinking a sour that has been like handcrafted, like elevated in a way that's not just like again the store bought. Because I think that the whiskey sours that you like grab the mix, it's just going to be so high in sour and sugar that it doesn't give you that full experience. With the sour that we had, it was just like not too much sour, not too much, not too much whiskey if you don't like whiskey. Like everything was balanced and it was great. I feel like this with the Boulevardier, like it's accentuating more of that whiskey in a way that like, and I probably because, like you said with the Campari, you're having another type of alcohol or like, so like I think that it's accentuating more of like the liquor aspect of a drink than what you're getting from a whiskey sour, where the only thing that you're having in that is just the whiskey.
It's just the whiskey. To reverse engineer kind of what you said, but it also kind of reverses it completely, like what you were saying. I would like if you're going to compare the whiskey sour to the Boulevardier, you can. I would see the whiskey sour, like you said, it's just the whiskey working in there. But I'm looking at it with a little broader scope, with all the different ingredients going into it. And I'll do that the same here with the Boulevardier. Like when it comes to the whiskey sour, it's kind of like in musical terms, Black Sabbath, where all members are working together to accentuate Black Sabbath. And then the Boulevardier, the way it's accentuating the Whistle Pig, the rye whiskey, it's all these different aspects. And all these different ingredients are working together to accentuate that one part, which is the Whistle Pig rye whiskey. So that would be like Ozzy's solo career, it just like not everybody likes Sabbath, but they love Ozzy. Not everybody loves Ozzy. They would rather have Sabbath with Ozzy or fucking Dio or any other 14 singers that they had. But still, like just. I think I see exactly where you're coming from. I had to translate it into dumb rocker head terms.
That's perfect because I think that like I do feel that way
because it is rock tales.
I'd like to interject in here too that I think we've all said that we all like this cocktail. Yeah. Comparing this to a previous cocktail, the whiskey sour. I think we all pretty much were down to just the ice cube and the orange slice within minutes of starting it out. And all of us liking this cocktail, we're taking our time.
We're taking our time. We're savoring.
It's a sipper. It's a sipper. And we're savoring, absolutely. But so
and there's a lot of complexity to this that we're not even getting to on
there's a lot to unpack with the flavors on here.
So, and I think that's where I guess when I say something like cough syrup, probably goes back to like the sipping. Like it's not something that like even when you take it, and I don't want to degrade this drink when I say cough syrup,
right?
But it's the best way I can describe it when it comes to something that I'm like, I'm gonna need to take my time, like with this, or like it's like I take the sip and I stop, and then it's like if you say like back when I was a kid, where it's like you're gonna have to take 2 spoonfuls of this. It's like okay, I'll take that first one. Give me a second so I can take this next spoonful because it's just I'm gonna have to indulge it in a way that is different from drinking something like the whiskey sour or something that is easy to just kind of digest.
Yeah.
Because the harshness, the heat is there, and it's not something that like is for the gulping down, I don't think. So I think that's probably what's popping out to me a little bit. And again, I think that you're right with the music metaphor, that this feels like less Black Sabbath and more like Ozzy in the sense of like accentuating it.
That's why I like it. I like it because I like this Boulevardier because it's highlighting everything that the Whistle Pig has to offer. I really like that, and
I feel like it's the pig is whistling.
Yes.
It's whistling.
It's whistling pig.
Yeah. It's
whether we like it or not, that's what it is. Sorry, Whistle Pig, but your
You ain't
name,
just whistling Dixie.
according to Chandler, your name has to change.
Yeah.
Los Ciento, bros.
I'm probably not going to be sponsored by them. By the end of this, they're like, he can't even get our name right. And he also said that, like, cough syrup. So I'm just really...
They've already blocked you on social media.
Yeah.
So, like, I tried to look him up on Instagram. I didn't see him anywhere. Yeah. Well, that's because he called him cough syrup. But everybody, you said that the cocktail.
No,
the cocktail reminds you of. You didn't say it was cocktail, or you didn't say it was like the cough syrup of cocktails.
No, not. What's your name again? Who said that?
My name is Chandler Johnson.
Uh-oh.
Look me up in Kalamazoo everywhere.
Hey. Now.
Yeah, I didn't write that down here. Where's my pen? Because when we do the closing of the episode, I have to put down where folks can find you.
Oh, heck yeah.
KALI.
Well, right now, I don't want anyone to find me based on my... I'm going to get tons of Whistle Pig hate mail.
Nah, come on. What is it? KALIMI?
ZZOU.
ZZOU. Okay.
I appreciate the, like, in the middle of the conversation promotion right now. I'm going to finish my Boulevardier now.
Yeah.
What do we think of this?
I like it. First off, if I had to throw a 1 to 10 at it, I'd throw I'd throw an 8 at it, specifically because of the experience that comes with it. For me, this is not something you want to drink alone. This is something you want to drink with people of like mind and or differing minds, because you're the kind of person that not only wants to hear what other people have to say, you want to listen to them. You want to dissect what it is that they have to say, and you want to mull it over even when the conversation's done.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, when I'm swinging a paint gun left and right, rubbing both brain cells really hard together to do my job, I'm going to use the other ones to actually think about what's going on. This cocktail here personifies that notion, because it gives you a lot to think about.
The thing I think is interesting about this cocktail, I was pulling out some of our past notes and kind of comparing and that. And, as we already stated, the Boulevardier is the 1.5 ounces of rye, it's 1 ounce of sweet vermouth, and 1 ounce of Campari. Mm-hmm. To kind of put it into perspective of this drink, a drink that we did with the High West a few episodes back, we did a High West Manhattan as our cocktail with that. And a Manhattan is 2 ounces rye, 1 ounce sweet vermouth, and 2 dashes of your bitters.
Aromatic bitters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So very, very similar to this Boulevardier. It's just missing the Campari. Mm-hmm. And you've got the dash of bitters.
And the Campari, was it the Campari or the vermouth that is also a bitters?
It's the Campari that is is also a bitters. So,
but the Campari is made from wine. Like, what was it? Botanical infused kind of wine.
So I just thought that was interesting that it's very, very similar to a Manhattan, but I think that Campari takes it in a completely different direction.
Yeah, in a much needed different direction. Just like with any conversation that has to deal with social issues or political issues, it's a conversation that needs to happen, not a confrontation. Not this is my point and it's the only point. And then, like what you had mentioned before, Chandler, if you're not with us, you're against us. That's just completely fucking wrong. That's all there is to it. But it's weird how a cocktail that I was looking forward to get to can turn into such a deep deep conversation. Because that's just how the. I can wax poetic on just about anything, because I can take anything to a nerd fucking level that it probably doesn't belong to. But that's just me personally. And this empty cocktail glass now really it deserves that kind of conversation.
It is.
I think
it's like, I'm glad that you brought it all together, because I definitely do think that this is that type of drink where, like I said, like even when we initially started dissecting the drink itself, I said I didn't love it, but like it is one of those drinks that like I'm going to work through to fully understand it. And again, to kind of go back to that,
listened to
kind
the
of
cocktail.
I'm listening to the cocktail to be able to like to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And for you two, like it was one of those drinks that's like I really like this, and I think that like to tie it all together, it is a great example of something to take time. It is very a sipper type drink. It is a perfect kind of conversation drink that's like we'll talk things out.
Yeah.
We're gonna break some bread and get a better understanding of each other. But this drink also is a one that you sip it and you're gonna have to like take some time to understand it and to see the notes and understand what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Because there's gonna be some people that are gonna be on my camp that's gonna be like, yeah, this feels like kind of the, it's whistling, right? And for you,
I don't like whistling.
Yeah, and for you, you're like, I hear the symphony. You're like, I hear it.
It's
this
not
is
just the whistle. There's a lot more behind it. Give it a minute.
This pig is playing Beethoven, and it's beautiful.
You give it a minute, this some bitch is gonna fly. This pig is gonna fly.
Yeah, that's some pig. That's some pig.
He went Charlotte's Web with it. Some pig.
So,
well, golly, I think that's a great way to wrap up this episode of Savor the Burn. Thank you, dear listener, if you've stuck through all this entire dissection of social issues and cocktail. Thank you, and feel free to share this with other people of like mind, or with people that are not of like mind, because faith not shaken can never be stirred. I've always said. Definitely continue to check out savortheburn.com, where it's constantly being updated by the magnanimous, if that's a word, W2. Check us out on all podcast apps, not just the one you're listening to us on right now, but these other ones as well. And share us. Tell people to check us out on these other podcast apps, including but not limited to Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcast, Google, Samsung, Pandora, and many, many more. Feel free to check us out on socials. Give us that like, the follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Just search this for Savor the Burn or at Savor the Burn. Email us directly, info@savortheburn.com. Email me directly, Jonathan@savortheburn.com, or W2@savortheburn.com. And if you want to check out anything that our guest, Chandler Johnson, has to offer, which I think he's got incredible perspective, not only on a personal perspective of people in color, marketing, and or maybe just personal, maybe even professional wrestling, because we've talked about that off mic over Instagram DMs. Like, hey, you checking out fucking Friday night? Woo!
That was really funny.
Yeah,
like I was like,
eventually I had to back up because like this dude doesn't want to fucking talk wrestling for 3 hours with me. Like I gotta leave him alone.
It was really weird because all of a sudden I was like, I actually am. Like I am watching.
Yeah, it's like I'm
watching, and you're like, I have feelings about Gunther, and I was like, I honestly did not know who. Like I was like, I don't know who Gunther is, but I was like, I might have feelings about him too right now. Like I was like, I should hate him. Yeah.
But definitely check him out. Send him all your hate mail on WWE, and maybe you fucking love Gunther. Go for it. Whatever the Imperial fucking whatever it is that they're calling themselves, assholes. But check out his works on pickprogressproject.com and check him out pickposters.com. You can find him, Chandler Johnson, at LinkedIn. If you want to go to his website, it's Kalamazoo, KALIMIZZOU.com. Once again, a little slower, KALIMIZZOU.com. You can find him on Facebook.com. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. He's not on Twitter, so don't waste your time looking for him there. Just find them where it matters. And thank you one last time, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and femmes, for listening to the Savor the Burn podcast. And you know what to do. Keep on burning.